I am so excited to welcome Louise Edington to the Go Higher Frequency Astrology channel, where we are going to talk about her new book, Ceres in Astrology, Nourishment, Power, and the Rebirth of the Feminine. I'm going to focus our discussion on the unintegrated Ceres, specifically through the lens of power. We are going to look at a few charts of a few power brokers in Washington, D.C., who have interesting Ceres aspects. Plus, we'll bring in the U.S. Sibley chart, and we'll talk about a few important Ceres conjunctions leading up to the Ceres-Uranus conjunction in 2026. But a little bit about Louise, in case you don't know her already. She is known as the Cosmic Owl, a visionary astrologer, author, and shamanic guide who has been working with astrology for over 30 years. Her work weaves deep myth, evolutionary astrology, and quantum consciousness into transformative pathways of healing and empowerment. She is an OPA certified astrologer and peer group leader, and that's where we met. I was lucky enough to be part of her peer group in October, and I recommend her peer group to anybody who wants to kind of up their game in astrology. She has one. I think you said you're leading one at UAC this year, right?
Yeah, the 3 days before UAC in Chicago.
Cool.
Yeah, OPA have rented a lovely Airbnb 5-bedroom where if anybody wants to join me, they get to spend the whole 3 days in one house with me. So.
Yeah, great. I really recommend it. This is her 4th book. You may know about her other books. She has a complete guide to astrology and one that includes tarot, which you should check out. And she's a passionate teacher leading courses and retreats that awaken soul remembrance and cosmic connection. You can find her at louiseedington.com. She hosts her own Cosmic Owl YouTube channel, and she also teams up with a professional Aquarian to talk about political astrology, which is my favorite type of astrology this year. So if you watch me, I'm sure you'll enjoy her political astrology podcast. I'll put all
Suzanne's going to come on my channel later.
I'm really excited about that. I have to figure out what I'm going to talk about, but I'm really excited about that as well. And I'll put all of our links below this video, and I'll also include timestamps in case you want to skip around to what interests you the most. But before we dive into our discussion, you have a couple of series workshops and videos upcoming, right?
Yeah, on December the 13th, I'm doing a free webinar for Kepler College. So I'll give Suzanne the link for that. That's actually right on my solar return.
Wow.
I chose that day for that reason. But anyway, so Kepler College has a huge audience. They're one of the leading astrology schools. So I'm very excited to be asked to present for them. And in February, I think I picked February the 17th for that Aquarius new moon.
Nice.
I will be offering a series workshop. It's going to be a limited space 1-day workshop where we do a deep dive into the attendees' charts rather than just me teaching. So,
oh, awesome. That sounds really great. I'll check that one out. And you also do a Venus Star Point workshop every year, right?
Every 19 months.
Oh, every 19 months. You just released a video on the Venus Star Point, and I was very fascinated that it was linked up to this full moon upcoming. So you should check that video out. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm certified in Ariel Gutman's Venus Star Point work, but I've been offering this Venus retrograde class since 2017, and it's very shamanic in nature, very healing. So it's every time Venus goes retrograde, which is 19 months. So cool. That's why it's not every year.
Yes. So what I really wanted to focus on, I'm most interested in, is about this unintegrated Ceres and how this may relate to the Anima, Animus fracturing in one's life. Do you want to unpack this a little bit more in relationship to Ceres symbolically?
Well, Ceres really is about what feeds us in all ways. It's often related to the so-called mother wound, but I see it more as a nurture wound, right? And if people have challenging aspects to their Ceres, or obviously it depends as well on their relationship to their parents or culture they were brought up in, then they can kind of project their own wounds onto others. That kind of that's how it feels to me, rather than integrating that, making sure your needs are met, emotional, spiritual, physical as well, yourself. Because really, I've studied the work of several teachers, not astrologers, and really the way to integrate Ceres into your chart is to learn what your own needs are, like your love language, your spiritual thing, and your food and your body, and make sure that your needs are met either yourself or by being in relationship with others. That will help you do that. Does that?
Yes.
Kind of, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And for all of my human design followers, I thought it was really interesting that Louise has her Ceres in the gate of self-love, in the 10th gate, which is just really matching up to this idea of nurturing oneself. And that's how you're integrating Ceres. So that's your gift that you're offering. You learned that you needed to provide self-love, because I remember you talking about how in your house you were kind of the responsible one and you didn't have a lot of nurturing yourself. No. And you had to figure that out on your own.
I was the mini mom because my mom was young and I'm the eldest of boys. So there's a whole thing there involving patriarchal culture and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But on a bigger picture, I kind of see Ceres as coming into our consciousness and being recognized as a planet, which is what I feel she is, a personal planet particularly, as us also learning as a collective to care for each other and ourselves. So there you go.
When did you feel like, was it when you had kids that you felt like you were able to really recognize what your children needed versus what you needed? Is that when your discovery of self-love, or was it later?
It was a bit of a process. I definitely learned through my kids, because in my chart, I talk about it in the book and it's there, it's square to my lunar nodes, which makes it a difficult point to access. And of course, it's first and seventh house. So it's all significant relationships. So I kind of learned through them by teaching them that I cared for them, but also they needed to love themselves. I thought, there's a bit of a message there for me too. So,
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
I always feel like once you teach something, that's really when you truly learn. Exactly. Something through the process. So that's really cool. And so when I had in my notes this reference to internal family systems, you talk about that in your book, and the mother wound. And that was really big, actually, when a couple of years ago on Facebook, there was somebody that was really popular on my radar about the mother wound. And it was when I started to heal my own mother wound in my own life. And I found it particularly helpful to look at myself like my child. And because I never really could view myself as a little baby, you know what I mean? It just, the imagery of having a child was really helpful in finding a way to nurture myself.
I would agree with that. There's many ways that if we're helping an individual client to integrate their Ceres, inner child work is really important. If people don't know what internal family systems is, it's also called parts work. And I see the astrology chart as all the parts of us. And it's about coming into that center and really kind of coming into wholeness. So there's many ways that you can encourage people to do it. I read all those books on the mother wound too, but I see it collectively as not just a mother wound. It's because it's not all just about your mom. It's bigger than that.
Yeah. And then I wanted to get your take because you talked about the mother wound, but I know now you're viewing it much more broadly about how you think it shows up in men versus women's charts. Do you see a difference or?
Well, I don't get very many male clients, so I'm interested to look at the charts you've chosen. I don't think so, no. It can be, it can show up the same in both. I think we all have all the parts in our psyche. I think we can all have a mother wound, whether it's an actual mother wound. I do have one friend, not a paying client, who the book brought him to tears. He pre-read it for me, and he'd had a very difficult relationship with his mother, and his chart shows this. He's got Ceres opposing things and stuff, and he said it just brought everything out. Sent him to a few sessions of therapy, and he feels more integrated than he has ever before in his life. So there you go.
Yeah. I think in the United States specifically, men are so cut off from their emotions and are shamed for their emotions. And I feel like they project, all of their wounds on women, depending on what relationship they've had with their mother. And that could be a variety of forms of smother mother to totally absent mother, and how that plays out.
Helicopter mother as well can be damaging, or helicopter parents. But, I see women have that too in our society. We're not encouraged to, well, I think it's becoming less so, thankfully. But, to share our emotions publicly, I used to get all that, oh, you're so emotional kind of thing all the time, as if that was something wrong, And now I'm okay with being emotional because we all have emotions, right? So.
That's totally true. I grew up with a family of 5 sisters and 3 brothers, so a little bit skewed, but we still had a lot of shaming about emotions in my family. And in the world. Yeah.
At the dinner table, they would laugh at me,
Yeah.
I would, I lived in Northern Ireland when I was, and my mum is just as much a victim of this kind of keep it all in kind of ethos. But, we lived in Northern Ireland when I was a teenager. And one day I was this far from a bomb that exploded 5 minutes after I'd been that close to it, because it was during the Troubles. And the emotion of it came out at the dinner table. And it was just like a laugh and, oh, you're fine, get over it kind of thing. No, yeah. So.
That's horrible. Oh my God.
I'm all right. Yeah.
You're like, I'm fine now.
I am fine now. But they're kind of examples of how it can show up in women and men as well, and I think it's damaging to all of us. So.
Yes, I agree. And it's kind of come to the surface most recently with this talking of how empathy is bad, and that's the crux of our problems, is this empathy that we have.
Yeah. I know certain voices, shall we say, are spouting that, but I don't think many people are actually buying it. So.
Yeah, good, yeah. And we could go on and on about how empathy has played a role in actually helping us grow as a society and over cultures and civilizations. So it's so limited in thinking, these people. I wanted to talk about, I'm going to start sharing some charts, because you have this great chapter comparing the myth of Demeter and Persephone, which is basically the myths of Pluto versus Ceres. And we were just talking about how you considered Ceres to be a personal planet, because at the same time, they were both kind of aligned in the fact that they assigned Pluto a dwarf planet just like Ceres, and there was kind of a big controversy over that. So I can see why you consider it to be a real planet, personal planet. So if you want to talk a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Well, it's just through working with it. I kind of see Venus and Ceres and Pluto as the maiden mother crone, or the integration of that whole myth, Demeter, Persephone, and Hades, because most people know about the so-called rape of Persephone, which has also been rewritten in many ways as well. After that, there was a reunification, right, at the Eleusinian Mysteries, where Maiden Mother and the nasty kidnapper, which you could say is our own shadow as well, were integrated at the Eleusinian Mysteries. And that's the whole journey of coming into wholeness, to my mind. But don't you find it interesting how astrology as just a world has totally embraced Pluto? We've got whole books on Pluto and things, and been very little focus on Ceres because it's feminine.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I was just going to say
I
that.
I actually think Pluto is feminine too. But there you go.
Yes, that's interesting. And also, Saturn. We could bring in Saturn, but let's not. That's so fascinating because of the fact that when I first came into astrology, I recognized myself being drawn to the male astrologers as far as the people I wanted to learn from. And astrology is basically made up of 80% women. It might be a little bit less, but it seems like 80% women.
I'd say it's close. Yeah.
And, when I was starting to think about, the reflection of astrology versus the world, I was like, oh yeah, this is just a mirror of the outer world, about how everybody gravitates toward the men as the leadership and as the teachers and the role models. And I started to question that about myself, because I've always been the type of person that have been drawn to women authors specifically because they told my story, and I couldn't really get into the men's stories as much. And so I started to really unpack that about myself. And I also see a lot of it symbolically coming out in our politics right now, because it's really masculine heavy right now after, a big feminist movement. And I see a little bit of the women coming back in a major way and leading us out of this crisis. What do you think about that theory?
I completely agree. I think what we're seeing politically now is a bit of a backlash to, the movements like civil rights movement, feminist movement. So again, I don't differ too much between biological men and women, but the power hungry beings that are in charge at the moment, and I would include people like Pam Bondi, to be honest. So, are trying to cling on to that hierarchical status quo, power over paradigm that we have been under for so long. It was a bit of a backlash to people fighting for their rights, but I don't think their fingernails are going to cling on forever. So there you go.
I hope it happens soon. So I wanted to talk about how this may show up in relationship to Pluto and Ceres aspects in particular in some of the charts. So I'm going to start sharing the charts here. And I have a woman's chart to begin, but most of them are male charts. So the first one that caught my eye was Tulsi Gabbard. She's got this really great T-square, going on between her Mars, Sun, and Pluto, and Black Moon Lilith in Libra. And so I wonder if you wanted to, and it's so interesting that, Ceres is in Cancer and she's leading the CIA. You know what I mean? That combination is so interesting. So I wonder if you want to give a few words about her chart.
Well, also her Ceres in Cancer is in the 5th house of the inner child, to go back to you talking about, the child. Obviously, we know all the houses have many kind of layers, but that square, wow, that Pluto, Black Moon, Lilith opposing her Sun, Venus, Mars in Aries in the 2nd and 8th houses. What I know of Tulsi, she was basically brought up in quite a culty kind of upbringing, very patriarchal again, because some of the East Asian Hindu kind of cults are very patriarchal. And I think she is showing that she was never empowered at all to be who she was. I think she was highly controlled as a child, and it's coming out now. She's trying to do to others how she was brought up. She has not integrated it, as you mentioned, but because it's square, that's harder for her to integrate. She's going to have a hard time learning to do self-care and mothering herself, I think. So, what would you say about her?
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said about her Aries nature. I mean, she's demonstrably a go-getter and somebody that is fiery and can hold her own, has been in combat. But there's this like opposition to Pluto,
and Black Moon Lilith. So she's been taught to be that go-getter, that warrior, that all those things. I don't know how accurate her time of birth is. Do you know?
I don't know. No, I found the 3 a.m. So
I just wonder if she really is Pisces rising, because, she's very charming. She kind of does kind of draw people in, which does kind of fit with that Pisces rising. Yeah. But look at where, her moon rules her Ceres placement, and her moon's in Leo on her North Node. She's got a lot of work to do too. Learn that the power over paradigm is not the way to go. She's got very difficult 8th house, shared resources, kind of deep issues, I think, and a lot of manipulation and power within her upbringing, I think, for her as a female.
It's like she's just naturally drawn to those power dynamics. And just the way that she's responded. Well, she hasn't been hogging the airspace, but anytime that the president really needs her to come in and sit there for him to provide whatever propaganda that he needs. And then I thought it was interesting that her South Node is right on the U.S. Sibley's South Node.
Oh, I'm seeing so many connections with the U.S. nodes between some of these players. Isn't it interesting?
It's so interesting.
Yeah. But her North Node is conjunct the North Node, of course. So, will she... I think we are starting to see some of these players having somewhat of an awakening. And, that Ceres in Cancer really is a very deep empathy. That's very caring nature, but it's square that very tough opposition. I kind of think she's going to start seeing that this is not okay over time. Yeah. Not going to say she's going to flip just like a switch, but isn't it going to be interesting when Pluto hits her South Node and the US's South Node? amongst other many transits that we have going on.
Yes, it's going to be very interesting. I think that's happening next year, right?
I think so. Yeah. Or is it early? No, it's early 27.
Okay.
But Pluto transits are quite long and extensive. You feel them kind of coming. Exact.
The approach is sometimes worse than the actual hit.
But her charts. Thank you for choosing hers. Because I think I looked at it once ages ago. But how interesting that Venus and Mars straddle her Sun, and And her sun is exactly opposing Pluto. I think she's got some very deep shadow wounds from her upbringing and around her own self-worth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that she's going to have, because right now we're having that repetition of Venus on Mars, on either side of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have an upcoming new moon, which is going to trine. It's going to be within orb of trining her configuration. So I wonder if we'll hear more from her.
And Chiron is going to station direct right on her sun and right opposing her Pluto. It's been going back and forth over that in Aries. She's going through some stuff. And sometimes I think we humans have to see it right in our face, what's wrong, to start to change,
Right. Yeah, I always have to keep that in mind whenever I'm looking at the people in politics. I'm like, oh, well, this is their chart and this is why they're here and this is what they're learning and evolving from. That helps keep me a little saner to recognize that, and hope that they'll be able to integrate whatever they need to integrate in a more healthy way, right?
Definitely. I mean, she's having a Uranus opposition as well.
Oh my God, yeah.
Well,
crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next person, of course, is our.
I call him the apparent occupant of the White House.
But I really thought it was so fascinating because the Ceres discovery chart, like he's right on the angles of the Ceres discovery chart. So this is why he's here, and we're talking about him.
Yeah,
conversation.
We really are all players in the big cosmic picture. Then that helps me to have empathy for these people, even if obviously I dislike completely what he's doing.
Yes,
but they're playing out their wounds, and look at the Ceres Pluto opposition.
I know. And it's so fascinating that it's in Aquarius. His Ceres is in Aquarius because one of his big kind of, alliances, this administration is with the tech companies. And that's so perfect for Ceres in Aquarius. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Well, and with Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff, all of that kind of, so-called futuristic kind of stuff, which I don't think really is the future. But I think, he's a very damaged person again, and he's taking all these unhealed shadow work out on all this, and he's using all this tech company alliances and the Bitcoin energy to try and make himself rich. Pluto in Leo, right? So bringing all that out. I was glad to see that Bitcoin and crypto really took a nosedive recently. It probably back up again now, but his family lost billions on that day. But again, any opposition to Pluto or any squares to Pluto can be really difficult to integrate, and depending where they are in the chart. And so he's almost trying to rise above it in a way with Aquarius, Ceres in Aquarius. It's like, because we know that Aquarius as a sign can be a little bit detached emotionally. So empathy, doesn't do a thing. And he again, doesn't know how to really nurture himself. He just kind of detaches from it all and just goes for the greed, the shadow of his Pluto, I would say.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah, it feels like he's trying to play all of the, in every way, everybody against one another. And so it's almost like you need me more than I need you. And so there's this balancing act that he's doing. Especially with Elon, it seems like, Elon went away from his, he was basically, it seemed like he was like, no, you're getting too big for your britches. I'm going to isolate you. And now they're coming back into partnership. So it seems like he does a lot of that.
Well, it's where they can use each other, right? And it's hard to just talk about one placement sometimes in a chart, as you know.
Yeah.
Because we are all of our chart, but he's totally kind of duplicitous, really, in many ways. Be interesting to see what this full moon that's this Friday, December the 4th, does at 13 degrees, because I know it's an air trine to his Ceres, but it's kind of impacting him because it's very exact. So, I think he's gonna, he doesn't care for himself in any way other than greed and money, right?
Yeah.
He plays golf, sure, but his diet's terrible. We all know all those kind of things like that. He's going to catch up at some point, surely.
Yeah, surely. There's a lot of different aspects in his chart, and people keep talking about it. There's something that makes me think that that's going to be a bigger thing.
Well, Ceres is in his house of health, so yeah. So, and we're already talking about this MRI that.
Yes,
it's also the full moon. The moon, Gemini moon, will actually form an air trine to his Chiron as well.
Yeah,
in the second house. So, there could be a lot of news coming out. I wouldn't be surprised if there is.
Yes, a lot of things happening. So, so he has the discovery chart of Ceres. He has a lot of different aspects with Ceres square his Mars and on his angles. So, we could talk about that with the upcoming ingresses to see. It seems like it's an important aspect in his chart, just with this syncing up with the discovery chart. It seemed really interesting to me.
It is, yeah. I hadn't looked at the two together. I love seeing new perspectives every time I jump in. But, he's got that painful Venus-Saturn conjunction in his natal chart as well. And it's pretty much... sitting on Ceres moon as well. Yeah. Most people I think have read a little bit about his upbringing. His parents were hideous. Yeah. I looked at his both parents. His father's chart. He was a lot more crisis oriented. Looking at his chart specifically, more emotionally oriented than Donald Trump seems to be. I always think about this in relationship to my uncle, which is you never knew what was going to set him off. He was the type of person where he just would go off on the littlest things and then he would rage. It was almost like being around an alcoholic in that way. And so his chart seemed like something similar to that. So very much so. What the father's chart, that is.
Fred.
Yeah. And I've never looked at his mother's chart, but from what I gather, the whole upbringing was just she was cycles of abuse and horrible treatment.
She was ill.
This does not excuse Donald Trump, by the way. Yeah. So that would fit his sixth house then. Yeah. She was ill too.
Yeah, so she didn't have a lot of nurturing in those formative years when you really need it. So just a little bit of empathy for him. I guess it's hard.
Well, I have empathy for his inner child that he has not chosen to do the work on. So.
Yeah. Okay, so our next favorite person is Peter Thiel. Who has Ceres right in between Uranus and Pluto. Square Mars.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it made me laugh when we talked about doing this. You said he was in your series of Antichrist kind of things.
Oh, yeah. He started talking about the Antichrist, and I was brought up in that environment where that was one of the first things we learned about. As a child, that was kind of a cornerstone of the fear mongering in the religion that I was brought up with. So I'm doing a series on the Antichrist. So when he started talking about it, before everybody started putting a magnifying glass on it, I was like, oh my God, this is so bizarre. Because a lot of what has been harping on about is technology. And so I'm like, this is so weird that he's talking about the Antichrist and trying to use this as a platform.
Well, he has a really challenging Ceres placement again, because it's sandwiched between Pluto and Uranus for a start. And I don't know if you know the astrologer Mark Jones in the UK, who's also a psychotherapist. He calls the Pluto-Uranus conjunction often a trauma signature of traumatic upbringing in the ninth house. I'd say this is more cultural than just individual parents, right?
Yeah.
But but it's square Mars in his first house. His whole identity is challenged by all of this that he learned through his culture and his upbringing and his nurturing. Opposing Chiron as well. I know Chiron opposing Uranus is said to be the generation of healers, but it depends what it's in aspect to, right? So, that's a really tough T-square, I'm going to say as well. I think his early life was awful. It's a lot about, again, his identity as a man. I mean, he's gay, right? But he's like, he seems to be very unacknowledged. I mean, we know he's gay, but he doesn't.
He was outed. He was outed by the media. So he wasn't.
Oh, was he?
And he was always in college. He was always against, this
gay marriage
idea of being politically correct, and so would not even use the excuse of himself being gay to. I think it's like that Pluto Uranus, a conjunction with Ceres in the middle. It's almost like he's cut off from really his humanity in some ways. And I
would agree.
And even his Mars nature, with the square, like his masculine nature. So he's like, it's almost like it would not surprise me that he would still be in the closet if it were not for somebody bringing him out of the closet.
I think he has a lot of self-hatred too.
Self-hatred, wanting to control others so that they will not control him. But he was brought up also in an evangelical home, and specifically, he was moving around a lot. Like he had 7 different elementary schools. He moved around a lot and went to South Africa. And he grew up in a community that was pro-Nazi. So it was so ingrained in him, this idea that he was somehow special. And I think this is why he really connects with the Antichrist as well. There's this idea that there's this special chosen people. And that gives them the excuse for all of their beliefs in eugenics and things like that. And so he's starting to really lean into that, especially as it relates to technology, because if they don't lean into it, then, they could have this backlash against technology, which is a valid concern, I think.
Oh, I think it is. But, I think we're seeing who these people are more and more, though. So, again, collectively, I think we kind of had to see these people like playing out their collective trauma and wounds in the public eye, so that we go, I don't think we need to do that anymore, actually. So that's my opinion.
I hope so, yeah.
But his Mars is right on my sun, by the way. So so I'm kind of like, ooh. But so is this a timed one or a noon chart?
Oh, this is a noon chart, so we don't know the houses really.
Well, I think I do, having worked with professional Aquarian for over a year now. I do think the houses still tell us something, even on a noon chart.
Yeah.
But that Uranus Ceres Pluto conjunction, especially square Mars and opposing Chiron, is a really tough one. No matter where it shows up in his chart, he's got this internal voice. I always think of Virgo as very, very self-critical, because it's all those voices of his upbringing. He's also got Venus in Virgo. He definitely hates himself.
Definitely hates women. Yeah.
I don't think he likes anybody much. I think
he's going to have his Saturn return, his second Saturn return, which I've been kind of looking at. It's got, Saturn and Neptune there.
And transiting Chiron will go over his North Node as well in the coming months.
Yeah.
Pretty much at the same time as his Saturn return. And of course, all this Aries is Mars ruled. So I think, again, his beliefs could shift. I don't know if they will, because he's, very embedded in his, didn't he build kind of one of those, places where he's locked off from the world and he's safe. He's got safe rooms and
New Zealand. I think he bought some land in New Zealand. Yeah, that's that's crazy. He's one of those crazies. So I'm interested to see what happens.
But just for anybody watching, like these aspects on their own do not mean that you are going to be like these people. We have free will in how we respond to these energies. I have a Mars Pluto square natally, and his
me too.
His is even more exact. Some of us choose to kind of do the work, right?
Yeah, it doesn't mean that it's always an internal mechanism. Sometimes it's just an attracting mechanism as well for other people to be abusive in your life and to learn from that. And it can be both. You can have some inner control issues. It can be completely psychological, or it could be manifested outside of yourself, or it could be other people. So there's many ways that aspects play out. And I see them in multiple ways in my own life because I'm a big tracker, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That hit this moment and this is how it played out. And
me too.
Definitely different each time.
Yeah.
I think that's why it's really hard for people to predict. And using astrology, you can kind of get at the themes, but I find that the universe always throws me a curveball.
Oh yeah. So these lunations happening currently are going to be interesting. The Sagittarius new moon on December the 19th square his Uranus pretty much, and his Chiron.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, I think, with the Uranus-Pluto conjunction has had a lot of activations, I think, this year with the eclipses, and it's really been activating that energy. I'm hoping it activates it in a more of a concerted, collective way than we've seen so far with people coming out and protesting and things like that.
Well, I think we see it happening already. But just, we have to kind of look for it. Unfortunately, some things are not always highlighted on the news, but every Monday there's people going to the White House and putting that, yellow tape around the White House to say
really?
this is a danger zone. And there's all kinds of protests happening that really don't get
coverage.
Shown.
I wish they got coverage more. So Stephen Miller is the other one I know I need to kind of hurry it along. I think he's the last chart that I wanted to look at, but I thought it was interesting that he had his Ceres in Leo, and he's got kind of a Grand Cross, if you wanted to count Hygeia in here.
I do.
Yeah.
I usually do. Yeah. He's an interesting one, isn't he? Because he was brought up in a very liberal upbringing, and he just totally rejected it. But Pluto in Scorpio is an interesting generation, shall we say? But especially with that square from Ceres, isn't it interesting that these people follow the work of Curtis Yarvin, who thinks we should go back to a monarchy, and that's very Ceres in Leo. And he wants to be kind of a king, and he is in a way, because apparently he's really, his voice and that is probably about the most powerful in the White House right now. Yeah. But again, it's showing the T-squares and grand crosses, which I would count it as, are really, really powerful. And fixed signs as well, they change more slowly. They dig in. They are really rooted in what they believe. And so he's going to be a hard one to shift. I don't know what will shift him, actually.
It feels like he needs to be a performer in some ways, but in the ways that he's gravitating, the dark ways that he gravitates with that Pluto and Scorpio, and his nodes they're right between Saturn and Pluto. So obviously,
and he's Capricorn rising, which is especially when they are in their early years, they're always more reserved and unable to kind of let loose, know. And I love a phrase that I was taught about the seventh house by wonderful astrologer Patricia Walsh, that the seventh house is not just significant relationships, it's also projection and how we compromise ourselves for others. Mm-hmm. So that's his terrible seventh house playing out, kind of led by this Grand Cross, I'm going to say. He's a closet performer, but I don't think, like, Sun in Virgo, Capricorn rising. This full moon squares Uranus though again. Oh my goodness. Yeah. They're all going through some stuff, and it's going to get worse. Capricorn rising, I find, is often becomes less reserved and restricted as they age. They become like the old goat that goats around. But he's got some stuff to work through yet. And again, we always have free will if we work through it.
He's going through his Pluto square and his Neptune square right now, and those are big. They're big transits for people.
Oh, yes, they really are. Especially when they come together.
And especially when he's in the power, the power that he has right now. So he's really exercising that. And in many ways, like his wet dreams of power is manifesting. But usually it feels like it's that surge of power with the Pluto square, and then afterwards you kind of have to come down from that. In many ways, you're kind of humbled in some ways after that struggle.
The Saturn Neptune square at 0 Aries early next year that's coming up is going to be a real telling thing. Square is Neptune, trine is Sun, and activating Ceres and Pluto. And if you use semi-squares, Hygeia. Saturn and Neptune conjunctions collectively always harbour big change, but when it's aspecting that many things in his chart, with it being here on the third house, I think he'll probably start doubling down a lot on trying to hold on to this power paradigm and control, but more and more people will see it in him and say, no, not on my watch, kind of thing.
I hope so, yes. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the
I'm always more hopeful than Suzanne.
I've got Saturn at the top of my chart, and I have to really work at being less cynical and more hopeful. And that's why I have people like Louise Edington in my life to bring that out of me. Yeah, so the U.S. just had their Ceres return, and it was near the full moon eclipse, which I thought was interesting. And you see that transiting Jupiter was right between Uranus and Mars during the Ceres return, and Mars was coming to aspect Mercury. What would you say about a Ceres return?
Well, they are more frequent than a lot of returns because Ceres is, I can't remember the exact orbit, just over 4 years. So we've had several of them, but I think this one is particularly big because of all the nodes being immutable signs now and kind of moving back through the signs. And this being a mutable series, in the third house, I would kind of say that the US has never been able to see itself and its needs very clearly. It's kind of been out there in the world, and projected everything out there. Whereas while saying America first, it's never actually kind of lived it. Ceres in Pisces is actually kind of funny that we're talking about the empathy thing. Is one of the most empathic signs, and but Pisces, it's kind of like hard to kind of get a handle on and a grasp on. And Ceres in Pisces is just saying, I really cannot see how what we've got has not met everybody's needs in, I would say, the collective needs in a chart like this. And I see more and more people kind of talking about how the Constitution, clearly was written for a certain population, white male slave owners. Yeah, they were of their time, but there's a guy I follow on YouTube called Tad Sturmer, who's a historian and things, and he's going, stop adulating the founding fathers. They wrote this for these people, for the people that are trying to grasp onto power now. Does that mean they weren't of their time or whatever? Sure, they were, but does that also mean that we need to really look at the Constitution was not written for all people in any way, shape, or form, right? And so with this Ceres return, I haven't looked at previous ones, but just where everything else is, I think people are seeing it more. I think even Kamala Harris said it, didn't she? She said, the system's broken. And Pisces, in its highest expression, is that sense that we are all one and everything's connected, everything's interconnected. So combined with everything else, I think the whole of the US is going through a big awakening in many ways. I love that Jupiter was there on the Ceres return. I hadn't looked at this, but now the full moon this week is square the ascendant, descendant.
In the human design chart, the Ceres hits in the gate of friendship, which is part of the gate of community, which the nodes will be in at the end of December in the human design chart. And so it is about that friendship and partnerships with other countries and with each other. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, all kinds of alliances and connections. And I do think we are starting to see the shift if you look for it. There's more and more kind of people kind of coming together in just the US government for a start. Just think of the resolution to release the Epstein files. That was a libertarian Republican and a very lefty Democrat coming together to work on something that unites them. So, but there's many more examples. But of course, the US as a whole did have that Ceres return, but it's still coming out of its Pluto return. It had its Neptune opposition. It's had its Chiron return. It's
a lot.
It's an awful
busy.
lot.
Yes.
It's next year. It's also having its Venus star point return. So we are kind of reinventing this whole country, or being pushed to, I would say.
Do you think that there will be an organized effort to rewrite the Constitution?
Yeah, either rewrite it fully or lots of amendments. I said that long before, he was elected. Just looking at the chart, I always felt like, no, we're going to reinvent, the USA to be even better. Build on what we have, but to quote that politician who said, we're going to build back better. So,
yeah. Okay, yeah. Good. I hope when they're out of power and having a saner, more collaborative person help us rewrite it. But I just wanted to also point out that Marjorie Taylor Greene also has her Ceres in Pisces. And so she had her Ceres return 4 days later. And you can see that her Jupiter Ceres are aspecting her nodes, which is very powerful. And a lot of people were questioning like her motives and her motivation. And I just think she's looking out for her community. Now, if you're not part of her community, then you're not going to like her. But I think she's a person that is loyal to her community and whomever they be.
And I do actually think she has had a bit of an awakening to some degree.
Yeah.
This year, it may not be like she's not suddenly turned into like what I would say is like one of us, but she is, it was the women's issues and being treated badly by the apparent resident of the Oval Office.
Yeah.
That kind of, she looked deeply hurt over that.
Yeah.
Does that mean she's turning into an angel from our perspective? Probably not. I really do not think that she is going to run for president. I know.
Oh, you don't
speculate? No, I don't think so. Okay. I think she's realized the system sucks as well, and maybe she's better off doing something else.
Yeah, I definitely think she's going to be in the spotlight next year because she also has the community channel. You have the community channel too. So the ability to build community is strong and the nodes will be there. So I think she's going to do something if she's not going to run.
Oh, yeah. She's going to keep speaking out for sure. You know, be an advocate in some ways, perhaps, maybe just for these Epstein survivors, you know, or she could run, I don't know, maybe for a different office in Georgia or whatever. Yeah.
She seems like she's got to speak her mind. And then the ingresses I thought were so interesting. This is a little bit of a busy chart, but I thought, you know, the ingresses on all the outer planets, and you talked about this in your book as well. And the final one, because we've had the one that was aspecting Pluto, that was in 2024, and that included Venus.
The zero Aquarius one,
the zero Aquarius one, very near the south node of the U.S. Sibley chart, and that probably really added to the power of the technologists coming in, and
I think so, but also to the power of the people starting to rise up bigger and bigger, you know, things like that. And in my book, I did talk about a zero Aries conjunction of Venus, Pluto and Ceres back in 1823, which of course is really not very long after the USA became a country. And I think kind of what was seeded then was people, we're slow sometimes, aren't we, humans, realizing that, you know, what we have is imperfect. And it's even been called an imperfect union, you know, nothing's perfect. But the Saturn-Neptune conjunction at zero Aries will activate that point. And that's another big cycle, I think. So,
yeah, that'll be interesting. I'll have to dig into that a little bit more. You've got my curiosity. I'm always finding things that I'm like, oh, I got to find out more about that. And then we had, I thought the Ceres conjunction with Neptune in Aries was interesting because it was between Saturn at 29 degrees and Neptune at 1 degrees Aries. So I thought that was interesting. That was just in May.
Yep. Yeah. Well, there's we know there's so many activations around the 0 degree mark, and these are really interesting to bring in. I can't quite take it all in. I love that the North Node on the mid inner ring, the Ceres at 0 Aquarius that we talked about, is at 3 Aries, which is conjunct where Ceres has just stationed direct.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
I think she's powerful, and this is why I keep saying don't ignore her. You know, include her. Whether you're doing client charts or mundane astrology or astrology of events and transits, I find it interesting that one of the free sites, I'm not going to name it, that you can go and create charts in hasn't got Ceres on it. I'm like, really? You know?
Yeah.
Because she's been ignored. She's been ignored from her discovery on January the 1st, 1801. She was first called a planet, and some astrologers did call her a planet, and then she was demoted and pretty much ignored ever since that point. So, you know, and as all the asteroids are, but I kind of see the asteroid belt as this personal protection around the Earth, and she's kind of the queen of the asteroid belt because she is actually a planet.
Interesting. She's in charge of protecting us. That's interesting to think about. And then we have the one that's coming up in 2026. It's in May again, and it'll aspect Uranus.
Oh, and we could add Sedna into that mix as well.
Oh, yes.
Still there, which is really kind of this big crossroads. And yeah. It's, we can't ignore her, It's huge that she is moving into Gemini as Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all aspect each other in this mini grand trine that a lot of astrologers are talking about, but they're not including Ceres a lot of the time.
Yeah. Should. And then I thought it's so interesting because the sun at that time is going to highlight Uranus as well. And Jupiter, Mercury has been conjunct Mars, but there's a lot of Mars themes in these charts, Mars and Uranus themes. And I recall the solar return of the US chart has a Mars Uranus conjunction.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And I see that as radical change. I know a lot of people see it as war, but I think we're already at war, right? Anyway, it's a different kind of war, kind of more cyber war, idea war kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at this and I'm thinking if I could kind of sum it up, all these activations and things, it's almost like the divine feminine. I always hate that term, but I don't know what else to call it. In all ways, like nature, women, LGBTQ, people of color. It's almost like the bit that's been kept down by this paradigm that we've been living under is just screaming and going, no, we matter too, kind of thing, just like she was ignored as a planet. So
yeah, and it's interesting because when you think about Pluto being, the underworld and transformation and rebirth, and then you have the Neptune is basically dissolving a lot of the old paradigm, and then Uranus is the last, bringing it into some revolution of some sort. So I will leave with that image. That's a good.
And we've never been here before, in all these ways, because we didn't even know that any of these planets beyond Saturn existed until Uranus was discovered in 1781, after the founding of the USA. And whilst they were there, of course, before, and they had their impact. It's generally proven that once a planet is in our consciousness, its energy does start working with us.
Yeah. So we're rediscovering something. Or we're discovering something new. So thank you for leaving me with some hope. Excited for the next chapter.
I have great hope. One more thing, you do human design. Pluto is conjunct the USA's South Node in February 27. I believe it was human design talks about that date as well, right?
2027 is the new species, basically. Yeah, that's a big year.
Are we a new species or just a new consciousness or whatever?
Well, he speaks specifically to a new species. A new species, it's basically a super form of autism that people will not understand at first, but after a while, they'll basically be proven to be these pods where they can communicate telepathically with other like-minded species. Now, when I first came into human design, I thought, that's technology related. This is about AI, basically. And even during that time, because I was always working at tech companies, so that was already on my mind, AI, a long time ago. But they said, no, it's going to be an actual new species, but who knows?
Quantum physics proves that everything affects everything else. So, maybe the AI is changing us as much as anything.
Yeah, and they're designing babies now. So it definitely has something to do with whatever we're experimenting with, I think, from a technology point of view.
Yeah, and it is what it is. I don't fear it because anyway, I have little control over it. So
yeah, you might as well not fear it. You might as well look at it and hope for the best. Or, I mean, no matter what, we have to adapt to whatever is coming our way. And we only have so much control, like you said, and we can control our mind and our outlook. So I think it's a really great way to be, honestly, and I practice it every single day.
Oh, well, it's been a real pleasure.
Yes, thank you for coming, allowing me to interview you. And it was a big joy of mine. So
thank you.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.